Haaland announces Dortmund intention. City back down in the Messi race. There's goals galore in the World Cup qualifiers, a transfer roundup, and this week's great debate all coming up in the next few minutes. As I'm your host, Matt Froelich, you are the OneFootballers, and this is the Daily News. So according to reports in Spain, Erling Haaland has announced his intentions to Dortmund that he wants a move, and it looks like he could be heading to La Liga. Apparently he's already bought a house in Spain, although I'm sure many footballers could afford a house in Spain, so it's not exactly showing that he's definitely interested. Having said that, you just get the feeling that a player from his generation would definitely like to follow in the footsteps of Lionel Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo by joining Barcelona or Real Madrid. I say that as if there's no other options. Of course there are. Chelsea is said to be interested, as well as Manchester City as well, who of course in the last few days have announced that Sergio Aguero will be leaving the club. But personally, I just can't see Haaland going anywhere else. But I won't get into it too much right now, because later on in the video we've got the great debate coming up, and it may or may not centre around the future of Erling Haaland. So like I mentioned before, any sort of player from this generation of watching Messi and Ronaldo is going to want to emulate their favourite superstars, and that is what keeps players going to the top clubs. So many teams and players talk about legacy and how much that you want to emulate your idols and how much you want to play for this club, despite the fact they're not doing so well. And that is what happens with Real and Barca. They can have terrible seasons. Atletico could win the title. They could get knocked out of the Champions League. It sounds like I'm describing Barcelona's season at the moment. All of this could happen and players will still want to join. That's just the nature of the size of those two clubs, and you could see why Erling Haaland would probably be prepared to turn around a lot of money and a massive move to the Premier League if it meant joining one of these clubs. Having said that though, and talking about a potential new teammate of his in Lionel Messi, Manchester City have backed out of the race because they believe that the legendary Argentinian is going to be signing a new contract at the club. After the new president came in, it looked like things are going pretty well for Barcelona, and obviously one of the things at the top of his priority list is to make sure that Lionel Messi stays. It's good for him, it's good for their club, heck, it's even good for La Liga and all of their viewing figures from across the world, that they've got one of the world's best players within their system, so him staying is kind of a big deal. Pep Guardiola knows more than most about the goings on at the club, and if he and Manchester City think it's not really worth presenting an offer to Lionel Messi, then they've probably got a good idea that he will be staying at the club. They themselves, like I mentioned, are probably in for Erling Haaland as well, and quite a few other players mentioned, including Harry Kane and Romelu Lukaku, as they seek to replace Sergio Aguero. In fact, we're going to react to loads of your opinions on the Sergio Aguero news later on today, so make sure you check it out on the channel. Next up though, and talking of Romelu Lukaku, he actually wasn't on the score sheet for Belgium. Can you believe it? And they scored 8! Of course, the reason is that he was on the bench. Last night, they managed to put, like I mentioned, 8 goals past Belarus in a game which saw not only Christian Benteke score, which seems like a very rare occurrence, but Michy Batshuayi score as well. This now means this is an unwanted yet kind of wanted stat as well, because he's playing for Belgium, who are a very good team. It now means that Michy Batshuayi has more international goals in the last 3 years than he does league goals. That's Chelsea, a loan at Crystal Palace, actually I believe 2 loans at Crystal Palace, and a season at Chelsea. More goals for Belgium internationally at that time than he does league goals. That's not exactly the record you want as a striker, and you knew it was a bit of a rout when he got on the score sheet. Anyway, on top of this, things go from bad to worse for the Republic of Ireland after losing to Luxembourg in a World Cup qualifier. They only drew to 2022 World Cup host Qatar in a friendly, leaving manager Stephen Kenny rather a bit embarrassed after not having a win in his first 11 games as manager. In fact, the team that beat the Republic of Ireland, Luxembourg, almost pulled off a miracle again against Cristiano Ronaldo's Portugal after going ahead, but the Portuguese side scored 3 goals, and it turns out they are now top of their group for World Cup qualification. Elsewhere last night, and it was a very good night for Manchester United players, and one of them who barely gets on the pitch. Donny van der Beek managed to find the back of the net for the Netherlands as they won 7-0 in another absolute rout. And for Dan James, he scored the winning goal for Wales against Czech Republic in a heated affair, and it's a pretty good international break from him all round. Next up, in a quick roundup of the rest of the day's transfer news that you might have missed, and Frank Lampard is in line to take over as England under-21 manager after the current incumbent Adi Boothroyd claimed that the job was utterly impossible. Next up, and bad news for Bayern Munich and Robert Lewandowski fans, as the Polish forward will be missing the next 4 weeks due to a knee injury he suffered on international duty with Poland, meaning he will miss the Champions League quarter-final first and second leg against PSG. that is massive, massive news. Following this, Manchester United, Chelsea and PSG are all still interested in taking Real midfielder Eduardo Camavinga this summer. And lastly but not least, despite the fact there are quite a few teams interested in Locatelli from Sassuolo, it looks as though the midfielder will be heading to Juventus. So finally, lastly but not least, we come to this week's great debate where the OneFootball newsroom posed a question for all of you, and I did allude to it a little bit earlier. It is around Erling Haaland. The question for all of you in the comments, they want to know, what will Erling Haaland do next? Now, for me personally, I think his career has got Real Madrid written all over it, but not quite yet. This summer is going to be very, very difficult for any team around the world because of the last 12 months and the financial hit that COVID has taken to throw out the ridiculous money that Dortmund are going to want for Haaland. We're talking over 100 million euros. On the flip side of this, they probably could raise the funds if they sell a few players first. But the problem is, to sell 100 million's worth of talent, they need someone else to buy 100 million's worth of talent. And if no one's got that kind of money to spend on Haaland, they haven't got it to spend on other players, which Real Madrid could then go and spend on Haaland. No amount of money, that size is going to be swapping hands this summer. So unless Real Madrid just sort of find it down the back of their sofa, I don't really think they can afford it. The only team actually who could probably afford it, okay, PSG as well, is Manchester City. And even if somehow Pep Guardiola does pull off a miracle and bring Haaland into Manchester City, I can still see his future at Real Madrid. That really does seem to be the end game for so many players, and that's where I think eventually he will end up, although he may stay with Dortmund for another year just yet. You guys let me know then your answer to this week's great debate, your thoughts on the rest of the daily news, and check out everything else we've got going on by clicking here and here. But until next time, I will see you guys later.